if you decide to put the relationship first, you're going to be miserable in that relationship. So what really are you offering to that relationship? Deep down, you feel unhappy, you feel disrespected, you're not going to love yourself in that situation. So what love, respect are you going to offer anybody else? You cannot give $100 to someone when you have $0 in your pocket.
कैसे तुम्हें रोका करूं, तेरी तरफ आता हर गम फिसल जाए, आँखों में तुमको भरूं. Salam, hello, and welcome to another episode of Scribbled Sessions with Momina, where we explore the untold stories of our incredible guests. So bear jai and grab a cup of chai as we welcome our guest today. Today we have someone who is multi-talented. She's a singer, she's a leadership coach, she's a model, she's an artist, and the list goes on. She's an entrepreneur. And I feel like I'm forgetting a lot of things, but we will talk more about her story, her talents, and I'm so excited to have Ajitha with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Momina. You're very kind. I was wondering, I wasn't sure who you were introducing, but
That's all you.
Thank you so much. I am extremely happy and blessed to be in this presence and here to share my story and see how we can spread the message of inspiration through this.
I'm so excited. I have heard so much about you, great things about you. We were talking before this started, and I already got to learn a lot from you, and I'm so excited to share your story with everyone watching. I want you to tell a little bit about yourself in your own words, a little bit about your personality, so anyone who's watching it can get an idea of who Ajitha is.
Great. In fact, I have spent, I believe, the longest time of my life asking that very question, who am I? And I think I'm at a point now in my life journey where I recently uncovered a term that best describes someone like me. And I would say the term that resonated for me was the word Renaissance woman. And I found out that for someone who's extremely focused on multiple things, multiple talents, multiple passions, apparently we are supposed to be Renaissance women, and also because there is a science and an art balance in the personality. So you asked me to describe a little bit about my personality. I would say I am one of those that has been fortunate to have been in the science track for a while, but also grew up very early on with exposure to both performing and visual arts. So I feel like I'm kind of bringing both of those into who I am. And one thing that I always hear people tell about, people that know me well, tell about me is that I'm annoyingly optimistic.
So that is what we need the most in this world. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who are pessimistic nowadays, and it's so easy to give up, but it's harder to keep trying. And you, I also know you're a leadership coach, so you probably do this day to day.
Yes.
Inspiring people.
Yes, I somehow feel I'm wired for optimism, although it for realists, it is a very annoying thing. For pessimists, it's even more annoying. But I do find that being an optimist really helps you frame everything that's going on in your life in a way that allows for you to keep going forward. Yeah, that's I guess that's one of the key things.
You beautifully described it. I want to go back to your childhood days and ask you how little Ajitha was like growing up.
Oh, little Ajitha was extremely difficult to be managed by her parents. And the reason I say this is because I simply had no self-management techniques when I was hungry or when I was sleepy. Literally, clock, my mom will know that it was time for bed for me when will be on the floor and I'll be wailing and
throwing a tantrum.
big tantrum. And so it's almost like, okay, it's time for your bed. Or are you hungry? That's
She knew.
I was a very difficult child for my parents to raise, also because I used to fall sick very often. growing up. Even very, very early on, I had primary complex, which was another childhood form of tuberculosis. So I had a very sick experience through my childhood, but somehow I survived.
Where were you born?
Great question. I forgot all about that. I'm like, I'm just going to talk about how difficult I was. I was born in a place close to what is now called Chennai. It's a 2-hour drive from Chennai, a place called Vellore. It's actually a place that's very popular for a medical college called Christian Medical College. It's very popular across the world. People come from all over the world to get treatments in that location. So that's basically my birthplace, Vellore. And then I grew up in Chennai for the most part because my parents, they both moved from Vellore and started making a living in Chennai. So all my childhood I spent in Chennai.
Are you still connected to your hometown?
Absolutely. I have my large family, extended family there. My sister is still there, and I still have a home. My parents passed away over the past 3 years, back to back, but my home is still there. My birth home, or the home that I grew up in.
Have you been back since?
Yes, I have. I have been. I have visited. I almost visit. I had to visit also because my mom was sick until 2021 when she passed away. Actually, after 2021, I haven't been yet back home, but I think the time is coming.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like when it's the time, it just calls you.
Yes, absolutely.
So India will call you when it's the time. And I want to ask you a little bit more about how life was like growing up, and when did you initially, because you have many passions, you have many talents, did your parents have a role in any of this?
Oh yeah, I now that I know what I know over the past few years of really discovering my own identity and who I am, I can guarantee the fact that all the talents that I have come from either my mom or my dad's side. And the reason I say that is because my mom's ancestry was rich with music, dance. In fact, my mom's mom and my mom's sister were both teaching classical music, which we call Carnatic music. They were teachers of Carnatic music. And my dad's side, everybody is a teacher. Pretty much everybody. And
that's where the leadership coaching comes
the
from.
Teaching, coaching, facilitating, all of that comes through that lineage for me, my dad's side. And also, my dad is an extremely good artist, or was, I should say. And he carries that from his granddad, who was a sculptor.
And it still lives because you're carrying it within you.
Yes. So in fact, all my artistic talents, even my professional inclination, because my dad was really good at math and science. So growing up, he used to be the one teaching me the foundations. So the analytical and engineering part of me came from my dad's side. And then my mom's side is a lot of this performing arts. So it's kind of a amalgamation of, the parentage that I have.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful. Do you have any memories of your friends or school days?
Oh yeah, lots. Actually, lots. The part that I remember really vividly, and also what I'm sharing with you, you have, to put it in perspective for the viewers, is I've been on a self-discovery journey over the past 8 years. So what I'm sharing with you as my memories is very in tune with who I discovered myself to be, right? So in looking back as a school student, I remember my friends telling me, or at least used to, speak behind me, she's very dominating. She just wants everything her way.
And you just shared that you were like this with your parents too, growing up, and you were probably, they would take care of you a lot too. And we were just talking about, we had a conversation how, your childhood kind of shapes your personality and it goes into your adulthood.
Absolutely, yeah. So it made me realize that I was that very set in my way kind of a expectation kind of a person that obviously didn't land very well with some of my friends.
Did you think the way they described you was somewhat true, or do you think they just had a different idea of who you were?
No, I think they were able to see a part of who I was, in the sense that the same quality that was viewed as dominant is the same quality that made me the leader that I am.
Yeah, you could say it's confidence.
It is the positive elements of the same trait that I was exhibiting, which is I'll just take ownership and I'll just say I'll do this, and I'll, I also studied in a small school. The school was really in numbers very small. My class was in my 10th grade, for example, there were just 20 students in the entire school, 10th grade, that's it.
Yeah.
So it gave me the freedom to experiment and explore and put my hand and leg into different things, because what's the big deal? It's only 20 people. I can't make a bigger fool out of myself.
There's not that many people watching. So were you the youngest one?
Yes, actually.
I guessed it.
Yes, I just have an older sister.
Yeah.
She's only a year older than me.
Yeah, that's amazing. How did you, from living in India and being raised there, when did you decide to move here, and how was that journey like?
So I came here because my then husband moved here on his professional work, and I was actually working back in India at that time in a software company. I was part of their project management team offshore in Chennai, and at that time my older son was 2 years old. So about that time, because my then husband was here, I had to find a way to come here, and I didn't want to leave my job. So we actually found an inside connection between the chairman of my company that I was working for at that time and my now ex-husband. And we kind of orchestrated a way for them to move me into the US team in sales division. So that's how I moved. My move happened by that mechanics.
Okay. And you moved here. Obviously, life here and there is a lot different, but you were a working woman then and you are one now too. So was there a difference in transitioning?
Totally, yes. Especially with a 2-year-old, it was, I remember in the early days, I had to have either my parents or my ex-husband's parents in the house, because every 6 months. 6 months my parents, next 6 his parents. It used to be like, juggling in that sense. But it also provided me the opportunity to allow for my children or my child, my older one at that time, to go to daycare and really experience a different growing up environment, right? I think the biggest challenge I found was balancing home, balancing the kid, balancing the work, because it's a new role, new country, and new set of bosses and environment. It was tough.
So you've always been doing a lot of things at once. So it comes naturally to you now. I feel like now it's just practice makes perfect. Because you just told me that you were a mother, you still are, you're a mother, and you were working too, and then you moved. So it was a lot of things happening at one time.
Yeah. And looking back, I sometimes wonder, how did I do it all? But it sounds like a super heroic.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But you just did it because it's like you didn't have a choice. Like, what is the other alternative?
It's a lot of times our elders say, like, when the time comes and you have no other option, you just do it.
Yeah, you figure it out.
And you learn as you're doing it. Yeah. That's amazing. And then you told me that, your mom's side was, they were artists, visual arts. Visual arts were they performing, and then music too. So you probably did get inspired from them, and
Oh yeah.
it was
growing up. I remember very clearly, I was an odd one in my entire family. Like my grandparents, on my dad's side, they had 5 children and only three daughters and 2 sons, one of which is my dad. Both the boys are not around anymore. My dad and my dad's brother passed away. All the 3 daughters are still around, my aunts. And then we have the next generation, which is me and my cousins. And then we have the following. Like, we are a huge, big family. And even in my generation, when I was growing up, I felt like I was completely an odd one out. Only because I was, I could see a couple of my cousins interested in music. They'll sing.
but
just in music.
Yeah.
And some of them were good at art, but just art. And then I was one of those weirdos, if you may, that seemed to have an interest in everything.
I would call it multi-talented.
Well, when I look back, I felt like, I don't know why I'm like this. It used to be that the part of me, I used to actually question that quite a bit. I used to have these profound questions coming through me with like, because we used to fight amongst cousins saying whose god is the best. Okay, this is completely random, and we all used to have our favorite gods, because in the religion we grew up in Hinduism, while the ultimate message behind Hinduism is that there is only one god, which is the Param Atma, which is the oversoul.
Yeah.
But we don't know all that. We're like, oh, Shiva, oh this, oh no, Ganesha. Like, we used to have favorites, and I used to sit back and wonder, how come we all seem to think that our God is the best.
Yeah.
And this is not even within Hinduism. And then I expanded it outside, saying there are so many religions. Everybody thinks their religion is the right one. How can that be true? How can everybody think theirs is the best? Like, then who's right?
Yeah.
Or who's wrong? Right? I used to have these thoughts, and the same way I used to.
Curious mind.
It's the same way I used to also wonder, how come I'm, I wouldn't say good at, but how come I'm able to do some things like drawing, embroidery, painting, singing. I used to love role playing as a teacher growing up. I used to role play as a playback singer. I used to imagine I'm on a radio show and somebody's
concert.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be holding this virtual mic. Which
I can relate to that.
Yeah. I used to then think, like, how come I'm interested in so many of these things?
Did you ever watch Indian dramas growing up?
Indian dramas?
Yeah.
At that time, it was just the beginning of television back in India. There was only Doordarshan. There were not that many options. But there was always a part of me that fantasized being in movies.
Yeah.
And or singing in playback singing and things like that. So I don't know.
This is so funny. I want to share a kind of embarrassing and funny story. Me and my sister, we did grow up watching Indian dramas, because, you know, our parents would, my mom would, and then Bollywood music. So like her and I, we would just like pretend like we're one of the characters or like we're one of the singers, and we would grab a mic with our hand and we would go like we would like live in that moment like we're the celebrity. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that. But when did you decide that, no, this is something I want to professionally do or take seriously?
None of that really happened until about 8 years ago, when I stepped into my path of self-discovery and wanted to really embrace life and the gifts that I've been given. It also started with me choosing to step out of my long-term relationship with my now ex-husband, finding my passion, my love, my truth, the keyword being my truth. What's my truth? Because yeah, everybody, there are these things people say, you have to adjust, you have to sacrifice, blah, blah, blah. These are all programs that we have been put, it's been set in our head, especially as a woman, especially as a South Asian woman. And I at some point, I had to really step back and ask myself, what is my truth?
Yeah.
And what brings me joy and what feels right for me? Because what feels right for the next person may not feel right for me. Because maybe I'm not learning the same thing that they're learning by being in that particular situation. So I think asking these deeper questions really helped me make some tough decisions. And one of the big tough decisions was to step away from this long-term relationship and find my path.
Did you have moments of self-doubt?
Heck yes. I would be lying if I said no. I absolutely did. And I would say that this is where I think this is part of the reason, connecting the dots as to why I'm a coach today, is because we all have that still small voice within us that always keeps reminding us of what's right for us, what feels right for us, what is right for us. But we are so lost in the programs and the conditioning of growing up, whatever we have been told, that we don't pay attention to that still small voice.
Yeah.
At some point, if you don't listen to that still small voice, it's going to become a large, loud voice and a universe hitting your head by a 2x4 that you have to wake up.
And it keeps hitting you until you wake up.
Exactly. So it's that aspect is I really love helping people listen to that still small voice before it's too late, or before it gets too hard, before it gets too painful. Because why? Because that's what I did. I sat on my pain for 20 plus years without doing anything about it, talking myself out of, no, this is correct. This is what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you've been told to do, blah, 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 right? It's really finding that still small voice and listening deeply and acting on it.
Definitely.
So when I did that is when I was able to step into this path as, finding my journey as a professional singer, artist, all that unfolded once I allowed myself to be me.
That's amazing. I believe your story is so powerful because a lot of us just want to move on from our trauma and our pain. So the fact that not only you overcame it, but you are also helping other people now to overcome it. And I feel like, I'm not sure, you can tell me if this is true or not, but somehow when you're helping other people, you kind of also have to dig in a little bit into your own story again. And do you at one point like stop feeling it just comes to you like on autopilot mode, or does it still like bother somehow?
I think this is the big part of my journey, was really first healing myself. And I love this reference quote. I don't remember who said it, but they say the sign of true healing is when you no longer feel emotional when you share your story.
You're not connected to it anymore. It is a story, but you don't live there anymore, so you can revisit it.
Yes, it is something you are able to view with a completely different perspective. Yeah. And I think that is the root of healing. We don't fully heal until we think we are a victim of it. And when we step out of that victimhood and turn around and look at it and ask, what did this teach me? What did I learn from this? And how have I become better through this experience? When you look at the outcome being a positive one, you stop looking at it as something that happened to you, but you own it and you're able to collect the gift behind that situation so that you can then walk with that gift being a part of who you are.
And now you're giving that gift to other people. You're helping other people out. That's amazing. But initially, the step that you took to choose this career path, I'm sure this wasn't easy.
As a career path, it actually was not a big decision for me at all, because exactly what you said, when you see that what you have gone through is so transformational that you feel like it becomes almost like you're I wouldn't call it an obligation, but it almost feels like your heart wants you to shout about it from the rooftop saying, hey, I've uncovered something magical here that has helped me, and I want to help anybody who wants to take that help from me, right? So my motivation to be in this career path came because I knew what the path of healing that I took can do for me, and thereby I wanted to bring that as an offering to everyone else. Yes, could I have done it as a charity? Absolutely, but I do believe charity begins at home. So there I was at the pivotal point of not only my personal life transformation, but I was sick and tired of my 9 to 5 in my senior vice president role in the organization that I was in. I'm like, it's time to really make a big impact and not just be stuck to the need for a paycheck, but trust in the universe's ability to support me as I step in to serve more people.
You're doing something you love, so it doesn't drain you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure looking back, it all makes sense that things had to happen a certain way for you to get where you are. But now that you are here, everything that you've built is a huge part of your success, your hard work, and you want to treasure it, you want to save it, you don't want to risk losing anything. And sometimes you have to set boundaries to protect not only like everything you've built, but also your peace and the inner work that you've done over the years. So how do you set boundaries?
I think that's $1 million question. And I think it's a question that's worth way more than $1 million for us South Asian women.
Yeah.
And I also find it as a much needed skill, I would say life skill, even for South Asian men. Because I'm familiar with many men that are in situations where they just have difficulty maintaining boundaries with their own spouse.
Yeah.
And I think the short answer to setting boundaries is, the reason I'm smiling as I'm recalling the answer to this is because for the very reason of what I experienced through my journey and what I've helped my clients go through, I actually decided to create a 4-hour self-paced course on this very aspect of establishing boundaries and maintaining them. There are two different aspects, establishing and then maintaining with your friends, family, co-workers, across the board. The bottom line with boundaries is this: boundaries are about what you are okay with and what you're not okay with. You need to get clarity on that first. And once we get that clarity, then it's about expressing that, and expressing that including what the consequences are when the other person does not honor it. So the consequence, and it's not a empty threat. Those consequences that you're going to articulate when the other person does not honor your boundaries, you're going to honor it.
Yeah.
For example, this is an example that I've given in my course as well. If you have somebody in your family that is always late, let's say it's a easy choice. Let's say it's your better half, always late. When you want to go out somewhere, you are ready 30 minutes before and you're waiting for this other person to show up. They don't. It frustrates you, it stresses you. So this is a simple situation, but a great example. You tell them, when it's time, I'm leaving. If you're not ready, you come on your own.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. Now this is establishing what's okay with you. I'm someone who wants to be on time. It's important for me that I'm on time. And if you are the reason I'm going to be late, I'm going to leave you alone and I'm going to go.
And then they actually leave. That's maintaining the boundary.
And follow through. That is because it's not about punishing anybody else. It's about honoring what's true for you.
Yeah.
And let the other person make the decision. Is it important for them to accompany you where you're going together, or because you give them also the freedom. You don't need to force them to be ready when you're ready.
Yeah.
If they feel comfortable getting ready and being late, perfect. They can come on their own pace.
There's a lot of guilt that comes with setting boundaries. And I was thinking, as you said that, it's great, setting them. Maintaining them is the actual hard work, where you have to decide whether you want to let go and forgive, or just forget about your own boundaries, because sometimes deep down they will not be respected because you've given someone, multiple chances to do better or respect your boundaries, and it's kind of disrespectful when people don't respect them. And you have to then decide, do you put yourself first and walk away from a situation, or you put your relationship first? And then deciding that comes with a lot of guilt.
I think it's not even a decision that one needs to think about, to be honest. And the reason I say that is because if you decide to put the relationship first, you're going to be miserable in that relationship. So what really are you offering to that relationship? Deep down, you feel unhappy, you feel disrespected, you're not going to love yourself in that situation. So what love, respect are you going to offer anybody else? You cannot give $100 to someone when you have $0 in your pocket. It's the same with emotions as well.
Or you could overdraft.
And then feel depleted and drained, and then ultimately be resentful and hate others and hate yourself. Like, that's a downward spiral, my friend.
But sometimes it becomes your comfort zone. Staying in that pain becomes your comfort zone because that's all you know. That becomes your reality, and you kind of get good at letting your boundaries, not like people not taking seriously your boundaries, or people not respecting you or putting you first. That getting out of that stage, and I'm sure you coach on this too.
Yes.
Putting yourself first.
Yes, and putting yourself first, the reason there's a lot of guilt associated with putting yourself first is because people confuse being loving to self with selfishness. And I think that fundamental difference has to be very well understood. Why do I know this? Because I didn't have a freaking clue on the difference between the two. I was like, oh, I can't do this because then I'll be deemed selfish. No, when you honor your truth, when you honor what is right for you without having any expectations from anybody else, you are being loving to yourself. But when you put something into play which you want to do and force other people to follow it, that is being selfish.
Yeah.
So that distinction has to be very clear. Because if you are doing something that is loving to yourself, feels right for yourself, why feel guilty about it?
Yeah.
No reason to.
I would definitely come back to self-love, because I feel like we could ask you a lot about self-love and how do you practice self-love, or how do you define it. But I want to ask you if you believe in unconditional love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the love that our Creator has for us. That's how I define unconditional
Do you think
love.
humans can love someone unconditionally?
I am of the school of thought that we are the spark of our Creator. So if we are a spark of our Creator, and if our Creator is an embodiment of unconditional love? Yeah, definitely. Will we get there now or in 1,000 years or 10,000 years? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I truly believe that we all have the capacity. Yeah.
But we have to reach there, because love nowadays, we say that we love someone unconditionally, but it does come with conditions, because naturally as human, we expect, our partner or our friends or whoever we claim to love unconditionally to do certain things for us, be loyal to us, be there for us, support us emotionally or in whatever shape or form we expect them to. And when they don't fit those standards, we feel like, well, they don't love us the way we thought, or we love them, but we're also putting those conditions on them.
Yeah, I think there's a distinction or a difference between what type of a relationship we are entering into and what expectations we have around it, and whether our expectations equal to conditions. That's another element, right? We have two different words, expectations versus conditions. Would we want our romantic partner to be loyal to us? I believe most of us do.
Yeah.
There are very few that wouldn't. But then is that there again? It's a question of I've reflected a lot on this topic in my own journey as well. It's as simple as that, right? Which is, if there is a foundation of love that is truly connecting to individuals, all the other aspects that are aligning or not aligning can be worked out. Unfortunately, I believe majority of humanity is confused right now between attachment and love. There's a huge difference between the two. Attachment is rooted in pain. Love is not.
Yeah. Because you can love someone from a distance. You don't have to be with them. You don't have to live with them. You don't have to put conditions on them, because when we're attached to someone, or when we even commit to someone, commitment is also a part of it. We then start expecting things from them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we disappoint ourselves, when people don't, meet those expectations. But when we love someone, we just love them no matter what.
Yeah. That I think is the foundation of love in itself. But we think attachment is love, and we get confused. And attachment again is rooted in our inability to love ourselves. So we are trying to get somebody else to fill that void within us.
Do you think it's possible to unlove people?
Unlove?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Maybe. Personally, I don't believe, again, this is my personal perspective, is that if we are able to unlove somebody, then we have also unloved a part of ourselves.
Yes, because every time you love someone, you give them a part of yourself.
No, it's because every time we are able to love someone, we are able to give it from a place of fully loving ourselves. So we may not give a part of ourselves, but we are overflowing with that love within ourselves to offer to somebody. But if we unlove somebody, to me, that means you're taking away something, or you're stopping something that is natural.
Yeah.
And that means there's a part of us we haven't fully loved and accepted yet, that we are trying to pull back from somewhere else. Yeah, at least that's how I see it.
Definitely. I want to now come back to the connection and your love, because we're on the topic of love, your love for art.
Oh, yes.
Because you clearly have a passion for multiple types of art, and how you're connected, how you express yourself within every form of art that you are interested in. How do you think you found your way to express it, or you're still on that journey of finding the right expression? You were telling me you're learning new instruments and you're trying to find your voice.
Yes. So when we speak of the topic of art, to me, I try to compartmentalize them a little bit, because for me, art is visual arts, which is drawing, painting, sculpting, creating something in an artistic form that is physical. And then there's also performing arts, which is singing, dancing, acting, or even speaking to some extent, because I love to speak. I do speaking events. I have one coming up end of this month where I'm talking about what's next for leaders in this world. So in terms of finding my style, if you may, I don't think I have found it yet in any of the spaces.
But then again, like, since you do so many things, sticking to even one voice or one form of expression could also be hard because you like exploring.
Yes, that is very true. I think I get a lot of joy by seeing something and trying to replicate it or doing it. Like, I think one of my aunts who's still around and she's back in Chennai, she used to tell me as a child, if your eyes can see, your hands can do it. That's what she used to call me or refer to me as. So I find immense joy in looking at an art form and, nowadays with YouTube filled with to-dos or, how-to-dos and everything, I'm like experimenting, exploring. But it's still me being inspired by some type of art and then replicating it, right? For example, I have started doing these mandala paintings. They're called dot mandalas, the dot painting or whatever. I find such joy. I think since the beginning of this year, I've made like 7 of them already, and they're all huge, like big-sized drawings. And I find joy in that, but then I'm also asking, but this is just somebody else's thing. You're putting your energy and thought and creativity into it. It's not me. You know what I mean? So yeah, the short answer is no. I haven't found my voice in singing yet. I haven't found yet how I'm going to bring all this passion for songwriting and singing and playing an instrument and like it all coming together. Not yet.
Do you write as well?
I used to once in a while. It used to just come through me, to be honest. When I'm inspired, I'll suddenly write 5 lines and it sounds very poetic. I'm like, wow, okay.
Why do you think you stopped?
I think it's one of those parts of me that's like, you already have enough on your plate. Don't sit to write poems right now.
So did you learn singing professionally or did you have a mentor growing up?
Growing up, it was a whole different story. I come from a musical family, as I mentioned, and my mom wanted me to learn Carnatic music, and I would have nothing to do with it. I was like, not happening. She used to send me to learn Carnatic music, and I used to go fall asleep in the class and come back. I just didn't want anything to do with classical music, but I loved film music. I just need to hear it on radio, and then I'll be on it. But what I realized over the period of past few years of really uncovering who I am and what I really am looking to do in this path, I realized that there's a place and value behind having a mentor. So I've been training with a school run by someone who's also in the music industry. He's based in Dallas, and with his I started learning piano with him for a year. Then I moved to vocal music with one of his teachers. And interestingly, all these people are younger than me.
Wow.
So to me, and I reflect on it, and I always say, for me, the person that I'm learning from, it doesn't matter how old they are. I believe that I get to learn from everybody that I talk to, including our conversation today. There's something I'm picking up from what you have experienced in your journey. And so, yes, the short answer is yes, I do have mentors. And right now I'm going through classes for learning guitar, again with a person back in India. Mm-hmm. And he's also, younger than me, and he's had an amazing journey. And his vision that he wants to bring out in terms of helping people tell their story is something that resonates for me. And he knows that my dream is to be able to write my own songs and compose it someday and be able to sing it. I will even stretch it beyond. I want to be acting in it. I want to be performing in it.
You want to be the main character of your own story.
Exactly.
And that makes sense. I've heard 2 different perspectives when it comes to singing. There are people who have said to me that, we didn't really have to learn music. It just comes to us naturally, and no shade to them. There are people who are naturally born with talent, but I feel like music is like an ocean, and you can never learn enough. Even if you're naturally born with this talent, you kind of have to it's not even learning it from scratch. You kind of have to improve it, and there's so many aspects of it. So even if you know one type of or one genre of music, you can step into something else.
Absolutely.
And that's where the inner discovery or exploration happens. And I've also heard very famous people, singers say, we wake up every day and we take 10 minutes out of the day, and that's like a morning ritual to them, and they do riyaz and they, you know, practice. And I've heard people say, I have a mentor in Pakistan, and he has said, you know, not practicing one day can take you back weeks if you're just starting out.
Yeah.
Because you are learning new things and you don't even know how you got there because you don't have an understanding. You're replicating, you're copying, you're just learning as you go. And until you understand and you get to the point where you become independent, when you stop, you go weeks back. You go days back, weeks back, and then you have to start again.
Yeah.
So I truly believe, like, you know, learning does not stop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not happening anytime soon for
Yeah.
any of us. We are always evolving through
And
that.
I don't think it should ever stop, even if you get to a level of, like, you know, hey, I know everything, but then it comes practice. So you don't lose what you have.
Yes. Yeah. You said it really, really well. It's about getting to a place where you have, and I'm dealing with, in my work, I deal with creating neural pathways. So when your mentor mentioned about understanding, it's really about creating neural pathways that are strong enough in your brain that you can go back to it over time. And even when you stop practicing, you lose those neural pathways. You forget. So absolutely.
I would love if you could sing something for us.
Okay. Sure. I did not do any voice warm-up, so I'm trusting that the editing will take care of whatever happens here. बातें तेरी करते हुए थके सो जाती हूँ सिरहाने आसमां जाने कहाँ मुड़ जाती है देखते देखते तुझे ये गलियाँ तेरी तरह खुशबू चले तारे हमारी तरह रातों से मिले सुनी नहीं ज़माने ने तेरी मेरी कहानियाँ कर दे कोई नवाज़िशे करम मेहरबानियाँ.
So beautiful. This is one of my favorite songs.
Thank you. It is my all-time favorite.
You have a very soulful voice.
Oh, thank you so much.
It was echoing, and I'm like, I went somewhere. And Momina Mustasan, she's a great singer too. She's one of my favorite singers. I feel like you have that touch to your voice.
It may also be unconscious copying.
No, but I feel like when we cover songs, we can copy to an extent, and then, you know,
bring a little bit of ourselves.
Over ourselves.
Yeah.
But I could hear Momina through you.
Thank you so much.
That was really beautiful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Now that we've talked about all things singing, music, there's a lot to still uncover. I want to ask you about your modeling career, and when did that happen?
Okay, so on a whim, I participated back in 2020, right in the middle of pandemic. There was a virtual beauty pageant that was held in Virginia. And I actually wanted to participate in a beauty pageant because I felt like a part of my ability to communicate the message that I was wanting to communicate about. Every one of us is so focused on fixing the world outside of us. What if we only focused on healing ourselves and becoming the best version we are meant to be? The world will be taking care of itself, right?
Because if everyone started doing the work, then, you know,
then there's nothing to fix on the outside.
We focus so much on fixing other people and just don't realize there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my key message, and I wanted a platform that would allow for me to communicate that and also share my story. So this pageant was called Miss Indian Diva USA. I participated and I won the crown in that. And then I participated in another one in the exact same year, which is Mrs. India DC, which also included women that are single but over a certain age. So I participated in that as well, and I won the crown in that too. And then that kind of opened up an arena of a possibility of all the local boutiques wanting to, kind of have me model their outfits and become a model for them. I love to dress up. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Were you
sure.
ever nervous?
Not at all. That was something I just loved doing even as a child, standing in front of the mirror and, dressing up. It's just, I used to have so much joy doing that. And I'm like, okay, so somebody wants to actually share their outfit and clothing and stuff and then, pay for me to be looking great and have my hair and makeup done.
Every
and then
girl would want that.
Pictures. I'm like, sign me up. So,
that is amazing. So you wanted to take that far from there, or was your main focus to just, get to know other people in the community and have a platform to spread your message?
It was definitely, that was a starting point for me. Then I realized that I enjoyed the process of modeling, but I also learned something very important in that process. And this is so true for many of us with our collective programming, as I call it, belief system that people expect you to work for free.
Yeah.
And I said no. I didn't want to have anything to do with doing any work for anybody unless I'm guided to, unless I feel called to, unless I feel it's part of my charity work. There's no reason for me to do that.
Because you put your time and energy to do something for someone else.
Yeah. So for me, that became like, I realized very quickly that I needed to put that boundary, going back to boundaries, that I only work if you pay me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, thousands of dollars. I'm not asking for thousands of dollars because it's not realistic, because you're a small vendor, local boutique, I'm supporting you. So we can work something that's more reasonable, nominal, but I'm not going to do it for free.
That's awesome. What's the importance of networking for you? Because you have been able to meet these amazing people and have made these connections, and I'm sure that happened because you were able to network with all sorts of people.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you've heard of this saying, Momina, which says your net worth is your network, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about, and this is something I even teach and coach in my leadership journey of coaching other leaders, is it's not even, people say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. What is even more important is who knows you. I know Bill Gates, but he doesn't know me.
He doesn't know me.
So
how do you even make these connections? That's the $1 million question.
Well, you have to, like, let's take an example, right? I wouldn't have met you today if I had not stepped out and gone to a place back, 2 years ago about a place in Alexandria called Charty House. Because when I went for an event there, I met Sunny, who was a photographer there. And Sunny is the reason we are connected today in this interview, right? So that's how networking, you don't know how the pieces connect, you don't know how the dots connect. You just have to take the first step, meet new people. You have to be able to bring the love that you have for others first in that place. In that people ask me, what do I do in a networking event? What do I even say? I'm like, just ask the other person, what is their name? What do they do? People love to talk about themselves.
That is
like right now.
Yeah.
This whole interview, I've been
so
talking about myself,
yeah.
right? It's so easy to connect with people when you ask them questions.
Because small talk can be so draining, and that's what people do when they meet each other. They're like, hey, how are you? How's the weather? And that's when it gets awkward, and they're like, yeah, I wish I wasn't even here. And people, like, you look like a confident person. You are confident, and I feel like confidence is the key to success. But there are a lot of people who have social anxiety, and they try to put themselves out there, and last minute, I mean, I wouldn't say I have social anxiety because I have worked my way up a little bit, still a work in progress, but there have been times where I make plans and then I'm like, well, I was a different person when I made the plan, and I just like, it feels draining, and I'm like, I can't do this. And that's where mental health comes in too, because sometimes we're not realizing a lot of the things are happening on the back end, which makes you not want to do the things that you really want to do. So then my question would be like, how with everything that you're doing, you take care of your mental health?
Yeah, that is a great question. And my journey of self-discovery has really allowed for me to learn a few tools. One of the first things I learned was meditation. And a second technique I learned was what is called EFT tapping. And both of these techniques have been immensely helpful for me to rewire my own limiting beliefs, my own programs, and to also release all the triggers. There's always a trigger that causes us to have that trauma response or that, that stress.
Could you expand on what these things are?
So you mean the meditation?
Meditation and
yeah. So meditation technique that I'm actually a certified practitioner and an instructor in is called Theta healing. Theta is one of the brain waves we experience when we go to sleep, just before we go to sleep. So an active adult can be in 4 different states of brainwave, as I call it. Delta is when you're completely asleep. Your brain is between 0 to 4 hertz frequency. Theta is where it is between 4 to 7 hertz of brainwave frequency. And a little more than that is alpha, 7 to 14. And then when you and I are right now talking, we are in active brainwave state, which is beta. Now, theta brainwave state is a state in which you have access to your subconscious mind, and you also have the ability to rewire your beliefs. As long as you know how to find that you have them, it allows for you to rewire. So this is a technique that I learned back in 2016 and has been a key part of my mental health, emotional health journey. Because I have spent a lot of energy, effort, time, money in healing. That is what the healing is about. It is the source of those problems, issues, triggers. I've gone to the root of them and shifted it energetically, right? So that is, to me, that is my go-to. Do I get stressed and do I have those bad days? Yes. But when I do, I now have a tool that I've equipped myself with that I can then go back to that space where I remember how loved I am by my creator.
Yeah.
And it shifts everything.
I resonate with that a lot because we were talking about self-love, and I have those days when I'm like, yeah, self-love is not going to do it for me. But people say, like, instead of waking up and listening to music, because music in a way is, you have to be very mindful of what you're listening and what type of music you're listening, because the lyrics, those words, like subconsciously they're impacting you. Yeah. Like if there's like drugs being mentioned, or like, lack of self-love, or any addiction, or anything that could cause harm to your mental health, you're not realizing in the moment, but it's doing something to you. Absolutely. So I had to be a little mindful. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna change what I'm listening to. But then I've seen, some TikToks where these creators are like, you should wake up and not use your phone, not listen to music, but practice some, positive affirmations like, I love myself, or I'm beautiful. And I'm like, no hate to anyone who does that, but that's kind of cringe for me, because I'm not gonna wake up and be like, yeah, I'm beautiful. Because not every day you're gonna wake up and feel that. And the reason why I have been able to deal with some of the hardest days of my life is by waking up and saying, well, I am loved, the way you said. Like, there is someone so bigger than I am, and he loves me, and that's what keeps you going.
Yeah. It's just reminding yourself. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And ultimately, it's about finding what works for you, right? What works for hundreds of others may not be the solution for you. And that is the path of self-discovery. What works for you. Because it's not
what one shoe fits all. It's different for everyone.
Absolutely.
A lot of the people struggle with finding their triggers, but for some people who are self-aware and who know where their triggers are, and they know exactly what happened when they were 3 years old at like an event or something that caused them to, have the social anxiety they have, or the depression or the anger issues, but they don't know how to heal them. Mm-hmm. They're like, you could sit in a therapy session and tell your own therapist, well, don't tell me, I know exactly where the problem is. And I also know how to fix it, but I'm not doing it. Mm. And have you had those moments with your own clients where they're like, well, they're they're hyper aware of their surroundings, of themselves, and they've done the inner work too. And you may have given the advice on how to move forward, but they're just stuck.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay, right? There is always this right versus wrong struggle we get stuck in. It's almost as if the world is black and white. No, there is a lot of shades of grey in between, which means it's okay if a person is stuck and they are unable to do something about it. Things will evolve when they're ready for the next shift. Yeah. One thing I've learned, thankfully, in my journey of being a coach and a healer is everyone evolves at a different pace. I cannot bring my attachment to fixing you or healing you. That itself is not the right term. I cannot bring my expectations of how you should heal or when you should heal.
You can be resourceful, but you cannot do the work. They have to do the work.
They have to do the work, and your job is to hold space, because enough people are already judging them, including themselves. Why would they want a healer also in the mixture?
That leads me to my next question, because a lot of people are already judging them.
Yeah.
There's a very common saying in our culture, which I'm sure you must have heard, "Log kya kahenge?"
Oh, yes.
And being a South Asian woman especially, have you heard this phrase, and did you ever let it get to you?
That's what ruled my life for 20 years when I was in my previous relationship. Log kya kahenge was my biggest reason to not do what felt right for me. But ultimately, at some point, this is what I mean. When you shove away, keep shoving your pain deep down for eons, it is basically building up to become a volcano. Then you have no choice but to confront it. You got to face
explode.
it.
If you don't face it,
and then you end up confronting it. One way or the other, you have to confront it. Right? So there's just, and that's why I say, presence of judgment is a clear indication of lack of self-love. Whether we are judging others or we are judging ourselves, judgment indicates lack of self-love. When I love myself fully, completely, and accept myself fully, completely, I have no reason to judge where anybody else is in their journey, because that's their journey.
Yeah.
What they're going through is absolutely right for them. When they want my help, they'll come to me. I'm here to hold space. This is true even for my children. This is how I treat my children too. This is how I treat my sister.
And it's the non-traditional way to do it.
Absolutely. My older son is a college dropout. It's fine. That's his choice. My younger son doesn't want to go to school. I have got interesting kids.
But the way we were, if we were to do it, we would have serious consequences, because I'm not sure if it's different for you, but a lot of South Asian parents want their kids to go the traditional route and go to school, then go to college, and then land a job, and that feels safe to them because that's all they've known. Like, that's the only way to success for them.
Yeah.
And how did you switch that? That there's multiple ways to being successful.
Yeah.
So knowing that it's okay if your child does not want to, because not all college graduates are successful.
Yeah.
Just changing that, having a shift in perspective, and because you can talk all about what, holding that space for other people, but when it comes to your child, that motherly instinct or motherly feeling comes in when you're like, well, I need to be a little traditional about this. Have you had those moments where you're like, no, I'm gonna have a talk with my child? I'm gonna smack some sense into my child.
I think my children are here to teach me more than I am to teach anything to them.
I have heard this from someone, and it surprised me so much, and I'm like, what if all parents started doing that? Because I have a nephew who's 3 years old, and I kid you not, I've told so many people that I really need to learn from him.
Yeah.
The way he expresses himself, and he does it so well. When he's crying, he would come to me and he would tell me, this is what happened and this is why I'm crying. My mom was upset at me, and I was like, well, what did you do to make her upset? And he would give me an answer. So not only he's aware of his own emotions, he knows what caused them, and he also knows what he did to cause the emotions or the reaction of his own parents. So that's a lot of self-awareness at
Highly emotionally
age
intelligent.
3.
Yes.
Age 3.
And that's goes to show that our next generation is way emotionally evolved than we have until now.
And we can learn so much from them.
Absolutely. And so where is the question of me smacking on their head and saying anything? I think they've come here to teach me how to let go of this traditional mindset of you need to go to a college, get a good education. Because look at me, I did all of that. And here I am at a pivotal point in my life where I am finding a path that is completely unconventional and nothing to do with what I was educated in. I did my master's in, I did my engineering in architectural engineering, building construction and designing, and I did my master's in international business.
And you're not doing any of that?
I'm doing none of that right. So I'm like, who am I to tell my kids to go to college? Well, of course, they understand the consequence, that every decision comes with a consequence, right? That part is well understood. And that is my job. If anything, I get to help them understand the consequences of their decision and be at peace with that choice today. Tomorrow, if something changes and he wants to go pursue, getting a college degree, perfect. So I think they are here to teach me how I can learn to let go of the traditional expectations that I have.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like that's the only way to learn. Because we live through our own experiences, and what we know today, we can definitely share it with them, but that's not going to be their reality.
Yes.
So
they're here for a path of their own, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, kids don't learn from anyone else's mistakes but their own.
Yeah.
It's funny, and my mom, if she hears this, she would probably get upset too. There have been times where she would come to me and tell me that what you're going to do is going to have consequences. And I can give you guarantees, because nothing in life comes with guarantees, but she's like, I will guarantee you this is not going to turn out well. And a lot of the times I know deep down she's right, but there's this reverse psychology I have, and I feel like all kids do that. Like, I tell my mom, I wouldn't have done it if you didn't tell me not to do it. So now it just makes me want to do it. She's probably going to be so upset hearing this. And I'm like, what if something like a bulb goes off, and I'm like, well, what if I do it? And I have to try it. And when it does not work out in my favor, I don't come to my mom embarrassingly, but she does, and she's like, I told you so. And I'm like, I still, knowing that this is how it was going to turn out, I would still go back and do it, because there is no other way you could convince me that, yeah, bache, ye cheez nahi hone wali, if I didn't try it on my own. And I don't have ego issues. I think I've gotten to a point where I don't fear failure, but I fear not trying enough. So even if I know deep down that realistically this is not going to happen, I'm like, I can sleep at night better knowing that I tried.
You tried, yes. That's big, Momina, what you're sharing.
Then thinking that, oh, well, I didn't do this and I have this big ego that at least I didn't fail at it. And a lot of people live that way, and it's their way of thinking, well, at least we didn't fail, we didn't try. So, ज़हन में होता है कि हाँ, अगर मैंने किया होता तो शायद मैं अच्छा हो जाता. But they sleep well thinking that, it was their choice, and that gives them power. But for me, I'm like, no. I had to try it, and I had to see how things were going to work out. And if it didn't, at least I know this. And, it also goes to show like how far you're willing to go for something that you love and care about.
Yes. Yes.
Because 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, I'm going to think that, well, my mother said don't do this. What if I did do it? And I don't want to blame her for it. I would rather blame myself than blaming someone I care about.
Ideally, we don't want to blame anybody.
Yeah.
But yes.
But
I get your point.
Life is unfair, and things don't always turn out the way you want to. So like, I feel like it's better to blame yourself, or not even blame, like hold yourself accountable, than playing the victim.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I feel like in every situation you can learn something from it.
Totally.
And you don't have to always blame the other person. They can be a complete a-hole to you and you can still learn something from it.
I always say the most difficult person in your reality is the one teaching you the best lesson you are here to learn in this life.
तो हमने बहुत अच्छी बातें की आज, but I feel like we should not deprive the audience from your beautiful voice. तो अगर एक और गाना आप सुना दें मेरी रिक्वेस्ट पे और हमारी प्रोडक्शन टीम की रिक्वेस्ट पे, जब कोई बात बिगड़ जाए.
Beautiful song. It's actually a beautiful song that is rooted in a relationship and understanding between two hearts. So I love it. I'll do my best. I'm going to remember from memory. So. जब कोई बात बिगड़ जाए, जब कोई मुश्किल पड़ जाए, तुम देना साथ मेरा ओ हमनवा. न कोई है न कोई था जिंदगी में तुम्हारे सिवा, तुम देना साथ मेरा ओ हमनवा.
The song just made me emotional. It's such a beautiful song. The lyrics are
it's a very
just so
deep meaning as well.
Thank you. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
I really would love to know if you have any advice to share for anyone watching who wants to be a singer like you are, or a coach like you are, or any career that you have attempted even in the past. If there's any advice you could give, and on top of that, if there's someone, I'm sure there's a lot of people like us who like doing multiple things at a time, and there's a new culture of focusing on one thing so people can, grow more. And it's easy. Even when it comes to social media, people say find your niche, because it's easy to grow. If your feed is all over the place, it's really hard for you to grow. And then people only spend like 30 seconds on your page to decide if they want to follow you or not. But as a creative person, it is so hard to do. So I would first like to ask you for an advice, then I have another question.
Okay. So the first and probably the only advice I'm going to give is stop trying to be like anyone else. Because you are meant to be you. And you are unique. And you're special. And that's true for all of us. So when we try to be like someone else, then we are losing our identity, losing our speciality, losing who we are. And that said, be inspired by those around you. Use your idols, your sources of inspiration as asking yourself, what about this person inspires me? Why do I even feel like I want to be like them? Because that thing that you are resonating with in that individual is also seated in you. It's a reminder to you that you have all that you're inspired by from that individual within you, waiting to be unleashed.
Yeah, that is so true. I've actually heard this from someone that I was talking to, and I said, I think it's a time for me to have a complete personality shift. And they were like, well, how do you want to be like? I was like, well, I want to be more kind, I want to be more soft-spoken, and I want to be like XYZ. And they're like, well, you already are. And you wouldn't have thought of these things if it wasn't a part of who you are. So that's
beautiful.
So true. I hope anyone who watched this episode learned from you, and there is so much to learn from you. And I hope when we do our second season, we can have you here again, because I feel like, just like I said, art or music is like an ocean. I feel like humans are like ocean too, and you never stop exploring and you never stop learning from one another too. So I have been truly honored to have you here today and to learn so much from you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really in awe of your vision for this podcast and how you have taken action on it in such a short time and put it into practice and made this unfold this far. I'm really excited to see what unfolds from here on and the great things that you're going to be doing.
I'm so excited for this too. Thank you so much for your kind words.
My pleasure. पल पल ठहर जाओ दिन ये निकल जाए ऐसे कैसे तुम्हें रोका करूं तेरी तरफ करूं, बिन बोले बातें तुमसे करूं, अगर तुम साथ हो, अगर तुम साथ हो.
Thank you so much for watching us. We will see you on another episode of Scribbled Sessions. Until next time.